Hello, my name is Hazel and this is my second work in progress video covering my minor project for Studio 2. To recap, my minor project seeks to answer how augmented reality can be utilized to enhance the strength and visual depth of the environment to allow for more effective storytelling in 2D animation. Revisiting my timeline, we're currently in week 5 where ideally I should now be in the testing phase of my 2D animatic in an AR environment. Before we get into that, let's talk about sound design. Collaborating with a practitioner in sound design was something I did not initially have planned for Studio 2. This was for no reason except for the fact that I was still in the pre-production phase and had not fully refined my concept nor had a clearly visual output for how I wanted my project to look and feel like yet. Luckily, my sound design pitch caught a fellow RMIT student and practitioner's interest, and I now have a collaboration in the works. How I envision sound will work in my project will comprise of an ambient and dynamic soundscape that focuses more on the sounds from the environment so that there's no restrictions time-wise. With a monochrome color palette in mind, the sound design will help to strengthen this mood, a mood of solitude, anticipation, and some courage while my character ventures into dystopian settings. The 2D animation will comprise of a simple walking movement, approximately 20 to 30 seconds long for now, so this will be the only aspect that requires sound effects. I'm also considering animating water into the scene, so the sound of stepping onto a puddle of water is also to be considered. As the interactive experience is quite passive and linear, incorporating sound will be quite straightforward and will be flexible to the sound designer and what they might have in mind. Going back to my timeline, I'm now in the testing phase. Prior to this, I did a few exercises revolving around anamorphic illusion and went back to illustrating with paper and pencil. The experience was enjoyable, particularly the methodical process of going about the exercises. I won't discuss them each in detail, but I decided to focus on inorganic structures, subjects that would be relevant to the settings I would be wanting to incorporate. I recorded time lapses of each illustration I did so with a nice little track to play in the background. Please enjoy the next couple of minutes. For the AR testing, I used iJet Creator, a tool I've been using for my 2 previous projects in Studio 1 and professional pre-production. Firstly, I did a 2D animatic of a simplified version of my character walking diagonally towards the top right of the corner. I would use this same animation for 2 of my AR tests using different settings. This first exercise was to test that even if the image tracker was separated or in pieces, it would still trigger the animation once the full image could be viewed from a certain angle. I did not have much materials to work with except for paper, so I decided to use the idea of a paper fan. This exercise proved that this worked. The AR triggered with a little delay, and there was only slight stutter when the camera was moving around. Keeping in mind, the image tracker is on a 2D flat surface, regardless of its orientation. The second exercise was to test that the AR image tracking would still work in a 3D environment. For this, I used recycled boxes to form makeshift buildings, and reversed them to get the clean blank canvases of their underside. For now, I'll stick with 3 boxes. The anamorphic square shape was drawn onto the boxes in position. Since I had no projector, I used a transparent square lid and placed it in front of my phone's flashlight to get the reflection casted onto the recycled boxes that were in position. In addition to the anamorphic square in the center, I created a black outline against the outer edges of the setting in the hopes of helping to anchor the animation and avoid as much stutter as possible. This exercise worked to an extent. It encountered more issues before I was able to get the AR to trigger. Until I was able to find the exact position, the animation would constantly stutter and distort. While it did eventually work, the usability was not to my liking, so I will need to troubleshoot this further between now and Folio 1's submission. What are the next steps to Folio 1's submission? First, I'm aiming to have a refined and fully working prototype. I am considering testing this with Adobe Aero should issues persist, particularly with the second exercise. Second, there should be progression with the sound design discussion. Third, I should have a refined design of the 3D environment or diorama after further troubleshooting and testing. And fourth, I will have put more consideration into the character's animation movement and production for the next 6 weeks, such as taking inspiration to use shadows for movement instead, or using pixels for stylized water movement. Thanks for listening.